Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast, it's Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
And I'm Scott Wakefield, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we talk about comic books and all kinds of great storytelling, sometimes with incredible guests. And we want you to join us Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you there.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, welcome to Silverline Sunday, the Sunday show for Silverline Comics. I'm Curtis Fujita, the creative director at Silverline, and we're going to go ahead and talk about comics as we make them and all sorts of cool stuff. So let's go around and we'll do a round of introductions. I'll start with myself. Like I mentioned, Curtis Fujita, creative director at Silverline. I'm also the creator of the upcoming comic book Shadow Ghost. I'm a Kung Fu instructor, so it's Shadow Ghost is the Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Roberta Conroy. Roberta, please introduce yourself and tell everybody about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Roberta Conroy. I'm a graphic designer and comic book colorist. Right now, I am working for Silverline on the Cat and Mouse series. And that's what I'm currently working on, but we have just finished up the Champion and Miss Fury Kickstarter, so thank you everyone for that, people that supported that. Very excited. So that's about it.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to Tommy Florimonte. Tommy, if you want to tell the folks about yourself.
Yeah, Thomas Florimonte Jr. Been doing comics since the early 90s, mostly inking, but I do a lot of coloring, writing, publishing, printing, just pretty much everything, everything that you can do as far as, going to shows, selling the books, selling other people's books, printing other people's books, just all kind of crazy stuff. Worked for pretty much all the different publishers there at one time or another, including some Marvel stuff, but a lot of the stuff for the Malibu books with the Ultraverse, all that kind of stuff, Nightman and the Strangers and all those Prototype, a bunch of those books. But currently for Silverline, we did Trump's issues 1 and 2. I'm not inking 3, but I'm going back to 4, Mr. Pete Clinton, which is our penciler on the book that Roberta was talking about a while ago, the team up book that was crowdfunded a couple of weeks ago that should go out pretty soon here. I'm the inker on that book. I'll be doing. There's just too many things. See, I got a whole list of crazy things here. And then I'm doing Trump's number 4. I'm doing Rejects. I'm working on that book now, and then I'll be working with our Dean Zachary on the Silverblade book. And then we got a big Christmas thing that I think that we're all working on. I guess we'll be talking about that at some point or another. And then I'm the co-owner of the printing, the comic book printing company, Kablam Digital Printing, the #1 printing comic book company of the world.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do my own echo effect on that. And then I do my own books under the Inferno Studios Kid Hero line of stuff. So.
Very good, very good. And I would be remiss if I didn't go ahead and mention that New Armor Media is taking care of the production on our show this evening. New Armor, our contact Carlos, is helping us out, making everything run smoothly and look good. And you can always reach out to them if you also want them to help you out, have a grade A show. So we want to thank them. And just a little bit of business. First of all, most of you know, but if you don't know, Silverline Comics, we're a genre-spanning independent comic book company. So we do tons of different titles, different styles, different types of stories. So this is what we do. Just to get down to business, first of all, don't forget, we do have a Zazzle store, Zazzle merchandise. We have wonderful things here like this.
Curtis, can you tell us what Zazzle is? What is Zazzle? That sounds
Wow.
like some kind of a drink or something, isn't it?
Tommy, thank you for asking. I'm glad
What
you
is
asked
Zazzle?
that. You know? Let's talk about Zazzle. That's ZAZZLE.com. Zazzle.com.
Oh.
And they are the purveyor of amazing things like this official Silverline mug, which, as you'll notice, is adorned with an illustration by the ever-talented Dean Zachary of Mouse from Cat and Mouse. And you can even choose what type of color is inside the mug. I have a blue.
Oh, hey, I have a black one.
If you can look at my colleague
I like
Roberta here.
black one. So see,
Roberta,
you can.
I
split
have
it
one
in
too.
black.
This one is no. This was not one. This is,
As you notice, Roberta is wearing part of our Silverline Fall collection. This is our
Silverline.
Yes, our Midnight
Silverline.
Onyx Black shirt, adorned with a cobalt silver lettering.
Yep, I like the lettering. Is great. It sparkles. You just can't tell from here.
Definitely. So you
Roberta
have
sparkles. She's a vampire.
It's her personality that's sparkling. So.
That's right.
I would.
So don't forget that. And also, Daytona Beach Comic Con is our sponsor. That's coming up soon. So that's in Daytona Beach, Florida. A lot of the Silverline crew is going to be there. And so make sure to, if you're in the area, go into that convention. I hear it's really great. Also, Roland, our fearless leader, is actually at MegaCon this weekend. So that's why he's not here, but I'm taking over the hosting duties. And the very last thing you'll see on the screen here, I'll be doing a little bit of drawing. We always talk about that we talk about comic books on the show, but the cool thing is we also make comic books while we're talking about them. So we'll be kind of handing the baton to the different creators on the show. But right now, this is from my comic book Shadow Ghost, and I'm using Clip Studio. So I'm doing this panel here, and the rest of the page, you can see some of the students bowing to their teacher at the Kung Fu Studio. So that's that.
Nice.
And then later on in the show, we'll switch to our other creators. I don't know, Tommy and Roberta, if you folks feel up to it, if you have stuff that you want to show.
Yeah, I could stream stuff whenever we're ready.
Great. Okay, so I'll do the first leg, and then we'll switch over after that. So as I get to working on this, let's talk about our subject tonight. Our first subject tonight is multiverses. The reason I selected this subject is I don't know if you guys have seen, but there's the new show on Disney Plus, What If, the new Marvel show. Has anybody seen it, or is it just?
Has it started yet? I didn't even know it had already started.
Yeah, just episode 1 just started, and the first one was basically.
Oh,
what if,
really? I've got a TV right here. Let me see.
Yeah. You can give us a play-by-play and.
Let's see.
Well, that's good. We'll have to check it out.
Definitely, and the first episode was basically what if Peggy Carter became Captain Carter, essentially Captain America, but she's British, so they call her Captain Carter.
Okay.
And it was directed and produced by Brian Andrews. If you know the animation industry, Brian Andrews was one of the storyboard artists on the series Samurai Jack back in the day, Gendy Tarkovsky.
Cool. Yeah.
And he moved on. Him and Gendy Tarkovsky went on to do storyboards and action sequences for the Iron Man 2 movie with Jon Favreau, and really good at choreographing action and things like that. He's actually a martial artist. He does the style called wushu, which is like a showmanship version of kung fu. So his action sequences are really phenomenal. So it's really cool. You should check it out. But what if, or in the DC universe, Elseworlds is basically alternate universes or multiverses about little tweaks or changes and how that would kind of switch the characters that we know and give you a different idea, different aspects of them. So I don't know if we'll start off if Roberta or Tommy, if you folks are familiar or if you enjoy those stories or those types of stories.
I don't tend to know an awful lot about them, but I can say that when you have an imagination, any of the stories you read, you kind of come up with that in your own.
Definitely.
So I guess.
Well, it seems like most of the what ifs were like whenever Marvel, and I think DC had a version of it too. It's like whenever they had you know, they somebody wanted to tell a different story with the character just to make it a little, it's like, what if Superman or Spider, we'll do what if stuff. So we're doing the Marvel thing. So, like what if, Spider-Man, wasn't a superhero and what would he be doing? It's all kind of oddball. Somebody just had they had a weird script of something that they wanted to write, and they were like, well, that's not going to fit into the main line of books, so let's just throw it in so most of the ones I got are just weird. I'm trying to remember some of the stories, but they were just a bunch of weird, they were neat, a lot of them, but they were just oddball stuff. They were just pick something out of the blue, and it's like or like you're saying that this one, what if a different person turned out to be Captain America and stuff? Like what if Spider-Man, Peter Parker was Captain America or whatever. I've got it playing right now. It's kind of good.
Well, definitely. I think like I remember one of the fun ones I read on Marvel was what if Wolverine was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., So it was kind of weird to see. It was by Rob Liefeld, and it was like Wolverine as like a secret covert agent, which was kind of interesting. Has anybody seen read? There's a movie. There's an animated movie, but there's also the series, the special book, Gotham by Gaslight. Is anybody familiar with that one?
By Gaslight? No.
Yeah.
No.
So
Where
that was
is
a cool one. It was basically, it's by Mike Mignola, and it was what if Batman was in Victorian England? No, actually, no, not in the Victorian era, and was hunting down Jack the Ripper. And really, really cool story. So you have
That's
Batman. Cool. Isn't it cool?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Batman had like all these his outfit was like really low fidelity and had like all these stitches and stuff like that. It was a really, really cool book. I think my favorite Elseworlds was another one too. You were saying, Roberta?
Oh, I said when did they make that?
Oh, that was like one of Mike Mignola's early things, like way before Hellboy. So that was probably like
okay.
mid-90s, like when we were at Malibu Comics,
That's cool.
Yeah, that was a cool one. And so you had What If, which was Marvel's version. And then I believe they were first. And then later on, DC did their version called Elseworlds. And my favorite Elseworlds one was basically called Speeding Bullets, and it was like, what if Kal-El, Superman, what if he didn't crash in Smallville? What if he crashed in Gotham and got adopted by the Wayne family? And then he became Superman, and he became Batman. So you have basically,
I love that idea. It's funny.
Yeah, it was cool. It was like Batman with a chip on his shoulder, a really big chip on his shoulder. So it was cool.
But then they'd be brothers, and I bet they would fight.
Well, I think what they did is that there was no Bruce Wayne. I mean, Clark Kent was Bruce Wayne, right? Was kind of the thing. I guess they felt no need to have a second child, which is kind of clever. But that also kind of brings into play the whole idea of the multiverse, and that's kind of, it's interesting because the films and so forth are kind of pushing for that aspect. Whether it's in the DC movies or the Marvel movies or TV shows, and that idea of the multiverse, that there's many different versions and different dimensions with the same characters with kind of tweaks or changes to them. I think Marvel's going to do Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and right now they're filming a Flashpoint movie, which has to do with the Flash and alternate dimensions, and they got Michael Keaton to come back as Batman in it.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, which I think is pretty cool. So, so that being said, do you folks have any thoughts about a multiverse or an alternate version of, it could be a Marvel or DC property, or it could even be one of our Silverline books? Any thoughts about something you would like to see, or something along those lines?
Well, I like the movie, the Into the Spider-Verse movie.
Oh, that was so good, right?
And that was so good, and that made fun of it in a way by bringing all of the different characters versions that they could think of all together in one scene, and that was just hysterical.
Which ones stood out? I mean, they all stand out, or were there ones that were kind of liked more than the others, or?
Not really. I mean, it just as a. You mean in the of the characters, or you mean that particular movie?
Oh, yeah, of the Spider-Verse characters that were kind of shown in that movie.
I don't know. Let's see. I mean, they were. It just together was humorous. I don't.
Yeah, well, Spider Pig was always pretty cool. But
I
we've
was
seen
shocked.
I
Spider
was
Pig
hoping
before.
it wasn't as funny as I was hoping, but yeah, it's
Just
oddball.
just him, just that character
It's
is. Yeah, I'm trying to go back through some of these. I've got a whole box of the what ifs,
Oh yeah.
and I should have pulled them. So I'm trying to go online, trying to remember some of these zany stories that they came up with. See if anything was looked familiar.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, like you got Spider. What was the Spider Noir? Isn't that what it was? That was
yeah. Nicolas
the
Cage.
black and white one. Yeah,
yeah, that was
He was
pretty
cool.
cool. But
That
and then
was awesome.
and then Gwen as the Spider.
I like her. She's
Yeah,
fun.
cool. Yeah,
And she looks
But-
cute.
Yeah, the visual style in that film was
it was
just
wonderful. Yeah,
Really
it was,
Oh yeah.
And
Really
I've said it on other streams and stuff. I still think the regular, what we would think of the normal Peter Parker, in the regular Peter Parker, the older version of him, is probably one of the best Peter Parker Spider-Mans that we've seen on any movie screen.
Yeah.
He was the not the blonde-haired guy that was in the alternate universe thing, but the one that the regular Peter Parker guy, our regular Spider-Man. Yeah, that was a great movie. I think
When
it's one of the best Spider-Man movies.
I kind of liked him too because his character was about as old as the Legend of Spider-Man. And as like having a middle-aged
That's true.
Spider-Man and being middle-aged, it's you can kind of identify what it's like when, as you get older and you're a little bit jaded and things aren't that easy and you kind of see the world as it is, and to see him kind of tested that way and find his way back was really satisfying, storytelling wise. Yeah. No, definitely. And Miles Morales, I'll be frank, I didn't really read the Miles Morales comic books, and I kind of thought the idea was kind of stupid to have a different version of Spider-Man. And then I saw that movie and I was sold. I like Miles Morales, so yeah. As far as what I'm trying to think of the what ifs, one of the ones that I liked was they did What If Wolverine Killed the Hulk? which was basically, if you know the history of the Wolverine character, he appears in Hulk 180 and Hulk 181. And so they did a version where it's just when he shows up and he fights the Hulk, he just straight up kills him, and everything goes downhill from there. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah.
I mostly collected the Spider-Man ones, and I am trying to find.
Hard to get them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. And I am trying to do. I remember there were some really silly stories that were just fun, and
I know that
can't
they
seem
had
to
a
find-
what if Gwen Stacy didn't die. I don't know what happened, I can't remember what happened in that issue, but that was one of the big what ifs, is if Gwen Stacy didn't die. Spoilers. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
What? She died? What?
One of our colleagues, Jerry Bingham, did an Elseworlds with Batman where it was what if Batman was from feudal Japan, and it was like this whole thing where it was Batman as a samurai, which was pretty sweet. And yeah, that was a great one. Does anybody watch? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Roberta.
Oh, I would say I think there's so many stories you could do with Batman.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It put him in any culture,
Mm-hmm.
and it'd be exciting.
Oh, definitely. There was a Batman Ninja animated movie that came out maybe a year or two ago, and it's phenomenal, straight to video. But if you ever get the chance to check it out, they basically got Japanese anime artists to do the whole thing, and it's just stellar. It's amazing looking, really really good stuff. So
Remember what it was called?
literally Batman Ninja, just Batman Ninja. Yeah.
I am gonna look that up.
Oh yeah, it's
That looks
visually
awesome.
stunning. Yeah, it's visually stunning. They even do stuff like if you look at the kimono prints and stuff like that, how they have kind of flat graphic patterns for the sky or the water. They do that visually on in the movie. So you'll see like the sky and it'll have like these repeating patterns, like basically like woodblock prints. You know?
That's cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. Does anybody watch or has watched the CW Flash TV series at all?
I started out, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it got to be an awful lot of seasons, and
Same
I
here.
dropped off just with time or whatever. But yeah, it was good. It was really good.
And they delved into the multiverse a lot too. You know, that kind of idea. Yeah.
Here's a funny one. What if the world knew that Daredevil was blind? That he'd do it all kind of running behind him, going ah ha ha ha. That'd be kind of...
Well, it doesn't matter if he's blind.
Yeah.
I guess that's the point.
Yeah.
What if Spider-Man had not married Mary Jane?
Oh,
I think I've got that one.
that's interesting.
But yeah, with the Flash, I like the concept of how it dealt with time. You know, it's like, okay, well, if I fix this, then this breaks, and you know, just constantly trying to get to that point to, you know, solve his parental loss, and he can't really seem to figure out a way to make that work and live in the same world.
Definitely.
I love time-based stories like that.
So, are you a big Back to the Future fan?
Mm-hmm.
Did you like all three movies as much? Or
I did like all three movies for different reasons, but yeah, I mean, obviously the first one is really the most solid, and there's really not much more you could do with it.
True.
You know, it introduces the concept of everything being new to this character that is just, you know, blindly following a crazy man.
I always wonder, how did they meet, right? How did Doc Brown and Marty meet? I mean, that's not normal.
They're neighbors, right?
Is that what it was?
Well, they live near each other, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But yeah, I guess I think there was something about, you know, that's what he did in his spare time, was just helping out.
Yeah.
So.
There was
I remember seeing that movie for the first time, and at some point during the first movie, it occurred to me what the title of the movie meant. You know, Back to the Future, and my brain went, "Well, that's just hurting my head." Back to the Future. Then all of a sudden, a young Thomas was freaked out at that point, and then fell in love with that movie. That was like all those movies.
What if it hadn't have been a DeLorean?
Oh, like maybe it could have been a Volkswagen Bug or something, or Rabbit. Yeah. It could have been one of the. You remember the Rabbit? That would have been pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you guys see on Netflix, there's a show called the Movies That Made Us. It's like a documentary, and they talk about Back to the Future. And I don't know if you guys seen that, because they talk about that it was supposed to be a refrigerator originally that he traveled back in time with.
Oh God!
Oh, really?
That's too similar to the TARDIS, maybe.
Yeah, and that idea got, because it was supposed to be that he gets back to the future by going to a nuclear test site and being in the refrigerator, and that idea got recycled into the opening of the Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull movie, because that's where they.
Oh, that's the movie that doesn't exist. We're not supposed to talk about that movie.
Exactly. And the original title was like
Indiana Jones with aliens. That made a whole lot of sense. I don't know how that one got made.
I didn't mind the aliens, but the swinging with the monkeys on the vines that his son was doing, that scene that's where I completely affected.
I did kind of block that movie out, didn't I?
Sorry to bring up bad memories, guys.
That's okay.
It was a good movie, but it was just, I don't know if it was a good movie, but it was cool.
I don't think it was.
But it's like, golly, why did they have to bring aliens into the whole mythology of the story? It's like, we didn't need to do this. And then we got Goof LaBoof was in there, and
it's called a bad what if. That's what that is.
That was a what if.
It's a very bad
what if. What if Indiana Jones met aliens? Is what that was a what if episode. Yeah. So I think they're actually doing another. They're doing another movie. So I think that this will be their real number 4. instead of the that one. I don't think they'll call it number 5. I think it'll be number 4.
And did you hear he got injured? Harrison Ford got his shoulder injured, and they stopped filming for like over 2 months, I think it's going to be, or something like that. So the word on the street is that they're replacing him digitally. They're going to just have other people on
I
set.
didn't hear that. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
place his face on top and stuff like that.
For the rest of the movie,
God.
you mean they're going to finish it all? What do they call that? Where they're doing the deep face,
fake?
deep scam, deep fake. Yeah. So is that what they're going to do for the rest of the movie?
Yeah,
They're just going to
Avatar.
fake it out.
Yeah, in fact, supposedly what they're doing is they actually got the guy who on YouTube will deep fake and review scenes that Hollywood movies did, and he'll do it better. So they
Yeah.
got this YouTube guy, and they hired him to do that because basically they realized that he has that level of expertise and is
It's
good at it.
the same dude that did the last Mandalorian, the last couple, the one with the Harrison, Luke Skywalker, where they did it the same scene, but they made it look good. You know,
Yes,
Is that with the battle scene, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that. That was good.
Yeah, so that's who they got, which is cool. You know, I mean, the guy
Because
basically
it is slow.
Yeah. You know, it was. Did anybody see The Irishman? It's that Martin Scorsese movie that was on Netflix where they de-aged Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and Joe Pesci.
I mean, I've seen what it looks like, but I hadn't seen it yet.
It's okay, you know, until there's one scene where Robert De Niro is beating up somebody, and it doesn't matter what they did to his face because it's 70-something Robert De Niro beating up somebody, and the camera's like way pulled out, and it's rough to see. I mean, he's you know, I mean, he's an older gentleman,
Yeah.
and it looks like what it is, you know. So, you know, things happen. But yeah, no, so. Yeah, but Back to the Future still, I consider that still a perfect film. In that movies that made us docuseries, they had a funny scene where I guess one of the producers didn't want it to be called Back to the Future because he felt it was a bad name. And he proposed that it was called like Martian Men from the Moon or something weird like that, I guess in reference to George McFly's novel.
That would not have taken.
Yeah, and they were trying to convince him otherwise, but this guy had a lot of clout, and I guess they were saying Steven Spielberg found the solution. And so when the guy suggested it, they faxed him back a letter, and Steven Spielberg said something to the effect of,
"No."
Well, no, he's very, very funny. He wrote, "Thank you so much for that title. You had us all in stitches."
Oh, gave him a way out, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so funny. You so funny.
Yeah, that was a funny joke.
Yeah. That was pretty.
And the other guy went, "Yeah, I was just joking.
Exactly. Well, they always say that in the Art of War, that Chinese strategy novel. They say, always give your opponent a way to exit because there's no opponent that is more deadly than one that's cornered and has nowhere to escape. So they say you always give somebody an out, and then it'll be okay. But if you pin somebody down and they have no way to get out of it, that's when they'll fight tooth and nail. You know. So.
There's always a good quote from you.
I wish.
Thank you for your always like something you'll find.
Oh, thank you. I wish they were all mine. I just plagiarize everybody else. If you notice.
No, but you're just passing around wisdom. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, there was wisdom with Marty McFly. I think
there is. There is.
He learned a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And I love, the more I see that movie, one of my favorites is Biff. I mean, Biff Tannen, like, oh, that guy's so good.
Consistently bad.
Oh, yeah. He's
consistently terrible person in every form.
Oh, in every age, and every, you know, even in the
grandkid, everything.
Oh, he's hilarious.
And he's very funny. And I love all of the things he comes up with in order to ruin normal sayings because he's so dumb.
Does it make like a tree and get the hell out of here? I love that.
Yeah, something dumb like that.
You got to go look up some. I believe it's him anyway. You got to go look up some YouTube videos where he's at conventions and stuff, and he's running around acting up and stuff. It's pretty funny. Some of the stuff that he does. Yeah, he's a pretty funny guy.
That's cool. So he's accepting it, but I know some actors get upset, like, oh, well, that's only one thing I did, or whatever. But he embraces it, huh?
Yeah, he seems to, and he seems to have a good time. I forget. We just got to go look it up. Yeah, he's trying to do. I remember he was doing one with what's the professor's name? The actor.
Oh, yeah.
The main guy.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was. They were at a convention, and he was. He was doing something. He was sitting at his table, and the Biff guy, was sneaking in behind him and acting up, and they were trying to get him to go off, and he'd pretend like he would run away back to his booth, and then he would sneak back in and just like giving him a hard time and all. It was pretty fun. You got to go look that up. It was pretty fun.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of dovetail off, kind of getting off the subject, but I have no problem with that because I think that's when we have our best conversations. Celebrities at comic conventions, right? Or former celebrities, as like I heard somebody say once, and it was harsh, but it cracked me up. They said, "Oh, they call it has been alley, has been alley." But for those of you that don't know, a lot of conventions you'll have the comic book people, and then you'll often have a section with people selling their autographs and signing stuff and stuff like that. But really, and a lot of people, some people don't understand that that's how they're making an extra buck. I mean, they're there to sell their celebrity or former celebrity. But does anybody have any interesting stories or experiences with that?
My main one, I've told it a bunch of times, so other people have heard this. I don't think I've told it on the Sunday show. Is the captain from Firefly? What's the guy's name? He's done a whole bunch of stuff since then.
Yeah.
But
I can picture him, but I can't remember his name.
Let me look up his name real quick. I was doing it was here in Orlando. Let's see, Firefly. No, the space show, Firefly.
Yeah.
Flanagan, something. What's his name? Oh, I can't pull it up fast enough. FLY, Firefly. Oh.
Yeah.
My screen went funny there for a second. There he is, Nathan Fillion.
Okay.
Isn't that how you pronounce his name?
He was
So at a show, we were all set up, in the artist alley doing the stuff, and he kept breaking in. I don't know how he was doing it, but it was kind of a slower show. It was a big show here in Orlando, but maybe it was a Sunday or whatever, and he was grabbing the microphone, the announcer thing, and he was just getting on there saying, come see me, I'm not doing anything, blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff, being funny. But several times during the show, I don't know where he got it from, but he was swiping somebody's electric wheelchair, and he was just flying up and down the aisles, just, running people over and stuff. It was so funny. Wow. We made fun of him several times, so he'd always stop at ours, and we'd, wave at him. Hey, there you are again. Here I am. Blah, blah, blah. I gave him some books once or twice when he went by. But that was pretty funny. That was one of the funnier things, seeing him just hauling butt up and down the aisles. Because there was nobody in there, and he was just racing somebody's electric wheelchair around. That was pretty.
That's pretty good.
Pretty funny.
Cool. Now, I know Roland met the guy, and I don't know if you were there, Tommy, at the time, but I know he met Dave Desmalchian, who is Polka Dot Man in Suicide Squad and was in the Ant-Man movies. Were you at one of those conventions?
No. He's got a story.
Yeah, he has some stories, so we'll have to bug Roland about that. But I always thought that was interesting. There was a funny one. And Roberta will appreciate this probably as much as anybody. And convention story. So Rob Liefeld, as we all know, big comic book artist, and back in the 90s was at his peak, or his peak of hype and everything like that. And we had this one guy. His name was Moose Bauman. Moose Bauman was
Moose. Yeah, colorist, right?
Colorist. And it's not my scene, but I remember somebody said once. He said it looked like if Grizzly Adams was a colorist for comic books. Moose is a big burly guy. Let's just put it that way. And I still remember the funny story is Moose was saying. Moose came up to us and was laughing because I guess he just literally had a run in with Rob Liefeld. And he said something to the effect of, and as soon as I say this, I haven't even checked the chat, so I'm sorry. I'll hop on the chat and look at what everybody's saying. I completely spaced about that. But Moose said he was walking towards Rob Liefeld, and I guess it was one of those things where neither one wanted to move out of the way. And so Moose had like a big soda, and he literally like shoulder checked Rob Liefeld, and they ran into each other. And I guess so. Then they both look at each other. There's spilled soda, and Moose comic book bag has soda in it. And I guess Moose, Rob Liefeld was upset, and Moose goes, "Great, great." And Rob Liefeld's like, "Look at what you did." And Moose goes, "No, look at what you did to me." And they were kind of starting to argue. And according to Moose, I remember him saying that. I guess Rob Liefeld said, "Well, do you know who I am?" And Moose Bauman's response was, "I don't care. I wouldn't even care if you're Rob Liefeld," knowing
Good story.
knowing that he was Rob Liefeld. And I guess Rob Liefeld said, "Well, I am." And he said, "Well, Moose
Sure
can be
you
quite."
are, buddy.
Yeah. He said, I'll take you outside and knock you down a notch or something like that. And I guess they parted their separate ways. So that's
It's a good story too.
yeah. And
Moose,
and if you
Moose
lose-
is really funny.
oh yeah, I mean, talk about this guy will not mince his words at whatsoever.
What I can imagine though is he had, I mean, when he's not smiling, he could be very intimidating. I mean, he has this piercing stare that I would think would freak Rob out, but I guess not.
Well,
He was
with that kind of name, you would think that he's got to be a big guy, right? Moose.
Yeah.
You don't call a little tiny guy Moose. Well, I mean, I guess you might.
Hey, very tall guy.
In a What If episode, you would.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I finally looked at the chat. I'm sorry for everybody that's been watching, but I do see that, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Michael Emke says Roland, and yeah, Roland will be back next week, and he says that he loves Spider-Ham. And yes, Peter Porker.
Okay.
The amazing
Another
Spider-Ham.
vote for Spider-Ham.
Spider-Ham, Spider-Ham.
And I have to say that was probably the biggest surprise. I was shocked that they put him in there, and I thought that was excellent. So, so that's in our Facebook chat. I'm going to go ahead and hop over to our YouTube chat. And yes, Stephen Brown, Stephen's always loyal. Stephen's always contributing. So sorry it took me so long, Stephen. I see you here. Stephen says there was the Amalgam Universe. Yes. I don't know if everybody remembers that, but
Yeah.
the Amalgam Universe was really cool. They had the Marvel versus DC crossover event, right? And then after that, they combined characters, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
And
That's
yeah, that was really cool. And the one that I always remember was called Dark Claw. It was essentially it was Batman combined with Wolverine, which is really cool. By Jim Ballant, I think. Jim Ballant drew that issue, and that was really cool. Yeah, Amalgam. Let's see. Stephen Brown says, "What if is a comic book where you can write anything and it won't be part of the main timeline?" Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind
what
of
it would be, yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of the funnest part. Is it was like super to me. What if is like the super nerdiest comic book, right? I mean, that's where that's the stuff we would talk about. As
It's
fans.
almost like a real fan fiction, right? You can just do whatever you wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like authorized fan fiction, Stephen also, we were talking about Flashpoint. Stephen also went on to say something to the effect that the way Flashpoint worked was if someone goes back in time to fix a mistake, you would cause a chain reaction, and if you go back to stop yourself from fixing that mistake, something is still going to change. And I think that's kind of like, I guess, the morality tale about all those kind of things. Is that you can't change certain things from happening; it's out of your hands. My granduncle was part of the 442nd. I don't know if you folks are familiar with the 442nd, but the 442nd was considered one of the most decorated battalions in World War II. and it was composed of Japanese American soldiers, because it was segregated. And so you have to understand, for those of you that don't know, of course, that timeline, a lot of the Japanese on the mainland here in continental U.S., their families were essentially incarcerated.
Yeah.
In concentration camps, or detainment camps. They were put there because of, I don't know how to say it, but the racial turmoil of the time, right? And these same people felt the need and the calling to represent their American allegiance, and went to fight the war in Europe, for World War II. And so I was talking to him about it in his later years, and of course, unfortunately, he had PTSD and things like that, and I had specifically asked him. I said, knowing what you know now, experiencing what you have now, would you go back and change things? And he was a very pleasant guy, but he did not like me saying that. He kind of stiffened up and kind of looked at me very sternly, and he says, I don't think that way. He goes, it happened, so there's no going back, so I don't even question those kind of thoughts. He goes, that's not the way I want to live my life, And I think with these kind of timeline tales, oftentimes that's one of the cautionary lessons of it. I mean, sometimes it turns out good, like in Back to the Future, but that's one of the things is I think in the best stories, whether things change or not, people go back to the original timeline and they've learned something or appreciate something about what they had or what made them who they are from the prior timeline, right? So, sorry, getting a little philosophical, but that's my thoughts.
No, I like that a lot, though. It's true. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of where it is. It's the choice that you make. Is it, set in stone? Is it predestined? We don't know. But, why would you entertain, stress about what it could have been?
Exactly. Yeah.
When all of your choices came down to how you felt at the time.
Definitely. Yeah, I was going to say all these time travel kind of shows, as much as I like them, I like them just as much as everybody else. They always just, I don't. Can you guys name any time traveling shows that actually work? In the end, they'd always get messed up. I mean, if you're going to say that you can time travel forward or backward or whatever, and especially in the movies and stuff, we just watched one with the guy, he was in the new Jurassic Park movies. He's the guy, I can't remember anybody's name. There you go. So he's in a new show where he was a military guy, and apparently sometime 20, 30 years in the future, did y'all see this movie that just came out? Yeah. And then, they're doing all this stuff, and they come back and they change the stuff, and they do it, and you're like, this is really cool until you get to the end of the movie, and then you go, none of this could have worked. It's like that's what my problem with well, I mean, but my mind doesn't work that way. It's like all of a sudden, I'm getting into it. I'm like, yeah, this is really neat. Go back and you can jump to the future, and those guys were actually, this is what happened. So why would they have sent somebody back to change it to make it right? If they did, then it didn't really happen. So there was no reason for them to come back. And then all of a sudden, then I guess that's a multiverse, because then it splits, right? It's nuts. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, to me, my wife just walked by and she's like, "Oh, Thomas is talking about time travel." I like Star Trek time travel, where it's just more silly, kind of.
I like it when it makes you really worry and think about it.
Yeah,
and I like it when it's like an unknown. Unknown technology that like maybe one person has at their, the ability to do it. And then it's like all the responsibility that you can imagine on that person of knowing the future.
Yeah.
And like whether they'll be personal or whether they'll be socially responsible or whether they'll try to alter history, in a big way or a small way. It's all up to them.
It's my thought is that unless there is multiverses where everything just gets split every time, if you were able to come back, I think it would just change. There's no way you could do what little, the smallest, littlest thing that you possibly could do. Say you did go back and you told your previous self that, maybe you should buy some Apple stock or whatever, or something like that. And then you did it, and you went back and told yourself, and then you bought it. Then your future self, it would just, even the littlest thing would change so much stuff that, so I kind of like to think that if you could time travel, what's going to happen is going to happen anyway. So you can't change anything. I think that would make, in my mind, would make things work out a little easier. But yeah, time travel shows to me just bother me so much.
I like the 12 Monkeys series, if you
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah,
on
yeah. That's
Sci-Fi.
fun. Yep. I'm not saying I don't like time travel shows, but they make the best what ifs, right?
It does.
Definitely.
Because I guess that would be a multiverse, right? Because it's splitting,
Yeah.
which I guess is what this latest Loki show, the thing that came out with trying to keep the timeline, one, and then it's just splits.
They're
all
picking the
kinds of
best
crazy
one.
way.
They're
Yeah.
like trying to pick the best one, deciding that works out the best for everybody. So
Yeah. I did want to throw in there real quick about we were talking about Liefeld. I have one funny Liefeld story. I was at a convention, and he doesn't know this because we were watching him. We were, me and Jimmy Palmiotti and some other folks, we were having lunch at a hotel that was next to the convention. And when it was over, we all kind of went out into the lobby. I think the restaurant was on like the third or fourth floor or something like that. And we were looking out, and I think it was Jimmy. It was like, "Is that Rob?" And Rob was like way down on the bottom floor, arguing with somebody. He wasn't arguing with what's his name from the other show the earlier that we were talking. No, he was talking with somebody, and he was doing his arms like, and Jimmy was like, "What's he arguing about?" And I'm like, "We need to ask him," because he was. That was that was yeah. He was real passionate. That's my only Liefeld story. I mean, I've seen him at shows and stuff. He doesn't know me from anything, but. Yeah, that was my Liefeld story. We were all watching him. There was like 5 or 6 of us while he was just down there doing like Kermit the Frog or something. You know how Kermit he was arguing with somebody about something, and it's like we're gonna find out what he was fighting with somebody about. I mean, he wasn't fist fighting; he was arguing. Anyway, I'm sorry. Anyway, going on. Yeah, time travel. It can't happen. Let's forget it.
Well, real quick before we go on, 2 things. One, does somebody? I feel like we're going to split it up into 3. So out of 3 art segments, does somebody want to hop on? Okay, I'm going to stop my cast now, and we'll let Roberta
start one. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'm ready to start. I had one.
Yeah.
Brand new one to start, which is always fun. I like that.
And while she does that, I'll look at the chat, and Stephen Brown kind of commented a little bit more. Stephen said he signed up on a site called ArtStation where he can post his portfolio.
I love ArtStation.
Yeah, and he says people can look at his work and they can offer jobs there. And he learned about it while sending applications to Boom Studios, which Boom Studios, the head of it, our former colleague, Ross Ritchie. But he says that he learned about it when Boom Studios, I guess, stated that they no longer accept portfolios to their site. So Roberta, you're familiar. I haven't used it. You're familiar with it? Could you tell us? I'm just curious.
I am. I'd heard of it before. I believe even Moose is on that.
Oh, cool.
I think I remember. But the reason I was on it recently is just with our, condensation of being stuck indoors for so long last year. I was looking for more outlets for meeting other artists and getting together with other artists. So last year, I believe, was just one of those pushes where I just happened to say, well, whatever happened to these people that I like? I like to go to just a few years in the past, when I was younger and having more spare time in my evenings, I would go spend more time on art, and one of the things I did like to do, there was a group of people that would draw in a pub, and I looked up and saw what they were doing, and they were all part of this art station, and they're streaming. And I really thought, if there's ever a time that artists need to stick together, it's that. So I had found that they had a Discord community, and they have a lot of people involved in that, and ArtStation is part of it.
That's cool. So is it just like, is it like Discord where there's many different aspects to it, or is it just that you post your artwork on there and people comment? Or? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, you should. There's a lot to it.
That's cool.
And
That's
if you just Google a lot of artists, they tend to be on ArtStation.
Nice. Well,
Yeah,
good.
it's a rather large community now, so I think it's really great.
Really? Well, thank you, Stephen Brown, for mentioning it, because I just learned something new, so that's always good. And he also continues. He says he thinks there was a theory in a multiverse that if you make one action in this universe, you made a different action in another. I can see that, like a branching timeline, so that makes sense. And he says that he's still learning about ArtStation, so that sounds like it's pretty robust.
I think it's similar to DeviantArt, in a lot of ways, if you like that one.
Okay. Cool.
But I mean, they can sell their art that way. That's the important part.
That's neat.
So it's like you can buy things from other artists, and you can also show off what you're doing, and it's a space.
That's really cool. Nice. Well, we're about at that halfway point. So, and again, we can always deviate wherever we want because it's our show. The inmates are running the prison today. Roland's away, so we can do it.
Wait, you have the evil laugh down? I think you did.
Yeah, I have a friend that would always say from my video game days. He'd always say that if you really want to be able to, you have to rub your hands in an evil way when you say something. So.
Oh, I guess you're right. That always looks dastardly.
Exactly, dastardly. I like that adjective.
Yes.
So I was thinking the other subject would be soundtracks, just in general. We could talk comic book stuff, movies, but just soundtracks in general. If there's any soundtracks anybody stands out for you, your favorite soundtracks, ones that you like, or composers, things like that. So maybe we'll just kind of round table it. Does anybody have any soundtracks that you enjoy or stand out for you?
Repo Man.
Which one?
I said Repo Man.
Repo Man?
And when I was a kid, I remember I liked The Crow when it first came out.
That was great.
Oh my God.
When you were a kid? Oh,
I was a kid.
I
was a teenager.
Oh,
I was a kid. Sorry.
That soundtrack had they had The Cure. It had Violent Femmes. I mean, it was
right. It was
insane,
it was heavy.
Stone Temple Pilots. That movie was awesome too. That was a damn good movie. Yeah,
really good movie.
Yeah, and then they just did horrible versions of it afterwards.
Yeah, they couldn't. Well, I mean, there's nowhere you can go from there.
Of course, for me, it's all the John Williams stuff because he back when Star Wars, Episode 4, he was doing everything, from the Star Trek to Star Wars to Superman, all that kind of stuff. Didn't he do some of the Indiana? He did Indiana Jones too, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did the theme. And he's so great about the themes, like creating a theme that's iconic and that you just it's stuck in your head, Yeah. Did you see that video? There's a video of some kids that are in like a middle school orchestra or something like that. These two kids, I forget what instruments they play, and they find out where he lives. Oh. They drive up to his house and they start playing the Star Wars theme in front of his house, like serenading.
Oh, that's fun!
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And John Williams comes out and meets them and says hey, you guys did a great job. You hit this note and you did this and you did that.
Now get out of here, kids. We're trying to watch TV.
Yeah, now get off of my lawn.
That's right.
you're the fifth people to do this today. You got
I'm
something
to try and share. Yeah, I just opened my file, so let me share my screen. with you
All right.
guys. A single blend. That's it. Okay, so we have Cat and Mouse.
Oh,
And this is a really cool splash page. I love it. This will be fun to do. So we'll see.
and I think
The interesting part is a cell phone. She's stumbling around, running for her life, and she's trying to dial on her cell phone.
and I think
like that.
it was just getting set up, but I think Carlos just got that on the screen now for the people watching. So if you wouldn't mind now kind of reiterating.
Oh, yeah, I'll say it again. Okay,
Yeah,
so here's the full page, and I'll take everything out. So we have Cat and Mouse and Widowmaker, and that'll be Mouse running. She is on the cell phone trying to call for help and stumbling out the door being chased by one of the widows. So that is an exciting little panel.
And this is series. Is this series 2 or is this still series 1? The first of the
series 1.
Series 1, the last issue, I think, right?
Yeah, it would be technically number 4, I believe. That's how that is set up.
And the pencils are by Buffett. And I think, who did the inks on this one?
This is
That's
Barbara.
Barb's doing that one.
Barb?
Yeah.
This is Barbara. Mm-hmm.
Looks great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure. I keep getting these so quickly. There we are. And there it is. I wanted to show the pencils. See? Does it show up or it doesn't? It doesn't show up. Okay. Never mind.
Still looks great. And you've been coloring the whole series, right, Roberta? Have you been coloring?
No.
Yeah.
I have not been coloring the series. I'm new to this series now.
Oh, okay.
I'm replacing Kevin Gallegly.
Okay, Gallegly,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
He is getting, I think the third book is his last one.
I see.
So now I am on that one.
Do you feel that there's a shift? You just you wrapped up Champion Miss Fury. I mean, which is kind of in the Roland verse, as I call it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But are you?
Superheroes.
Yeah, it's superheroes and New Orleans. Do you feel like it's a continuation visually, or are you kind of taking different things into account, or how do you approach?
Oh, I'm sorry. And finish your question.
Oh no. How are you approaching it differently, if you are, than Champion Miss Fury?
Well, I think Champion Miss Fury was a blank slate. I didn't have colors to go back from. And with this one, I don't want it to be like a complete tonal shock from where it was.
Sure.
So I do want to take some nods to the touch that Kevin had given it, and try to incorporate how I color and my color palette, which is a little bit brighter than his. How she'll work them in, and still try to have the same emotional impact that he had. It's more like everything seems extremely worrisome for these characters all the time.
Yeah.
And it tends to be very dark, and so I'm going to try to keep some of that feeling in there.
That's cool. Do you feel it's a little bit more? I mean, I kind of feel like, from what I've seen, and I'm still looking forward to getting my copy of Champion Miss Fury, which I know we should be getting soon enough.
I hope so.
I feel like Cat and Mouse has always been a little bit darker, and especially this latest incarnation is a bit darker than what I was seeing in tone than what I've seen so far from Champion Miss Fury. Do you feel that that's true?
It is. Yeah. It is. I mean, it's talking about serious issues, and I think that's part of it. It's not enough of it, but it at least gives some of the angle of the edge of the worry that is going on with these characters is because of a human trafficking ring that they interrupt. And I think that, is a very the series topic. So they try to work out how these characters can stop this.
Yeah.
And
I
the danger comes from that.
that stuff. I mean, I know it's real, but I almost encountered that once with my sister. It was, and I saw it going down as it was happening, and this was just a few years back, and it scared the crap out of me, to be honest. So, my family is in Hawaii. My dad's side of the family is in Hawaii. So my wife and I went back there on vacation, and we went to Waianae. So Waianae is on the other side of the island, far away from Waikiki and all the tourist stuff, And you get snow cones, but in Hawaii we call them shave ice. So we were getting this really good snow cone as my wife, myself, and my sister, and then my dad and my sister's husband. My dad and my sister's husband were somewhere else. So it was just me with my wife and my sister. And my sister was sitting with us, but she was a little bit further away. And we always kind of laughed. The genes kind of look different. So, we're both half Asian, half Caucasian. I got more of the Caucasian visual genes, and my sister got more of the Asian. So it's very hard for people to tell that we're alike. And so some guy was driving by in this big Cadillac, just bumping his hip hop music. It looked like a tough character. He parked, and then he came over with this little girl, and he went over to my sister, and he basically had his cell phone, and he says, "Hey, can you take a picture?" And so the implication, we thought, was he wanted a picture with this little girl who was his niece. And my sister says, "Yeah." And he's saying this, not realizing that it's my sister, because I'm sitting a little further away. And then he immediately gives the phone to this little girl and has her take a picture of my sister.
Oh, no.
And then just says, "Thanks," and then just walks off. And I go, I do martial arts. I like to think I'm fairly tough, but I've been around rougher neighborhoods. And when you're in a rougher neighborhood, you get out of there. Like if you're not the local in a rough neighborhood, I don't care what city, what place, the best thing you can do is get the hell out. So immediately I figured out what was going on is he was probably going to text that photo to somebody.
Say, "Hey, is this somebody that we're looking at?"
Yeah. Sweet. So I didn't want to alarm my dad, and my sister didn't want to alarm her husband. I said, "We are getting out of this town now." And they were like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'll tell you once we're on the road, but we got to get on the freeway, And we got on the freeway and got out of there. And it's just kind of, the scary thing is in those kind of situations, you got to trust your instinct, and you can't be afraid to be rude or weird. And the best fight that you can win is the one that you're not part of, And so we got out of there. So, like when you talk about human trafficking, that's some scary stuff, And yeah,
that is really good. Yeah, you made the right call. Just
get out of there.
Serious action as fast as possible.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a real thing. It's not like it's just made up to be bad guys in the story.
Absolutely, and I grew up in the suburbs, and I think a fair amount of us have, if we're fortunate. And so there's this idea that if you don't have a college degree or you don't come from a higher level of, organized education, that you're not smart. There's a different type of intelligence when you talk about street intelligence, right? And so when you're not in your element, you have to be aware. And so definitely. So so buy Cat and Mouse from Silverline Comics. Just dealing with the hard issues. I don't know if Roland's going to approve that ad, but real stuff. So let's switch it up because we went down a different path. Let's go back to Steven Brown. Thank you for chiming in. We was talking about that he's never been on DeviantArt, and I haven't either. I think I was so late to the game, I just figured why bother. I don't know if that was a good call, but maybe I guess there's hope for me on ArtStation. And he says he's trying to come up with a brand name. Yeah, that's hard. I don't know if you have any thoughts, but it's got to be catchy. You were talking about Boom Studios earlier, and we had a Malibu Comics reunion. I was talking to Ross Ritchie, and it was funny because he never struck me as a superstitious fellow, but he was saying that he specifically was looking at the syllables in Boom Studios as opposed to other studio names because he wanted to see which place is closed. So he said Malibu Comics, so that's Malibu Comics. That was 5 syllables, and that company closed. So he was looking at DC Comics, which is 4, and Marvel Comics, which is 4. So Boom Studios. So he chose Boom Studios because it had 4 syllables. So I guess there's lots of things that you can factor in,
Yeah,
but I thought
that's a little nutty.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
I don't think that it
yeah.
I don't think the amount of syllables resonates with people as much as the sound of the words and what it's saying,
Mhm.
you know, and if it means something.
No,
Yeah, I think what I call my own little publishing thing, the Inferno Studios thing, it was both trying to come up with something that this was early back in the when trying to get websites and all that kind of stuff, so it was easier to get Inferno Studios .com. But I was trying to just find something that sounded cool. Just find you said somebody asked about trying to come up with a name or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just find something that sounds cool, something that you can get the domain for. That means a lot, nowadays. Make sure you can get the domain for it, or some version of it. If it's something that's already, taken, you can always change it up a little bit if you really, really love whatever the name you came up with. Um, Coming up with something that sounded cool. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny that I call myself Inferno Studios, but I do basically all age kid books, and I still call myself Inferno Studios. So it has nothing to do with the flames and stuff on fire and all that kind of stuff. Even though my main little logo is a flame looking thing, but yeah, no, I'm on fire is what I said back in the day. I'm so hot, I'm on fire. That's stupid, but it's stuck. That's what I.
Well, it's memorable, and you can pronounce it, which is a big deal.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But both, and Steven chimed in after we said. Then he said, I thought I would call my brand Otherworld Comics, but when I looked online, it felt like it was taken. Maybe I can get something I can stick with, and definitely, one thing that I thought was interesting. My sister, when she had her own writing kind of studio or whatever you want to call it, business. What she did is she looked at foreign words and then looked at the direct translation of those words. So in other words, the word for library in Chinese is composed of the word temple and words. So a library is the temple of words. So she called her business Temple of Words, which I just thought was super clever.
That sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it? So you
really
can try that. Yeah. But it
Or
is
just
hard
name
to
it
find-
after yourself. If it's just a book that you're putting out, that's your own book, do you really need to go through all the trouble of coming up with some sort of crazy studio names? It could be, Flormonte Comics. That's just as cool as anything else. So you could just name it after himself if he wants. But, so you don't have to go too crazy.
No, definitely. And then there's always the '90s way where you have 2 characters with the same name and you just misspell it, which I always thought was funny. You
Yep.
know? So instead of Deathstroke, it's DETH, or something like that. So
I've mentioned it on this show before because of the Kablam, printing and stuff in Indie Planet. There's so many people that call themselves the same thing. So many books that are named the same thing. Until it actually gets to where it's probably shouldn't say this out loud, until it gets to it's really a big deal, that it really matters. Don't worry about it so much. Just call it whatever you want to call it. Don't call yourself Marvel. Don't call yourself Image. Don't call yourself Dark Horse. Obviously people are gonna, or don't call yourself, Disney Studios or something like that, because you're gonna get in trouble.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I don't want to go into some of the names, but if you just go on in Indie Planet and type the name of your book in, and see there's several books that like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail because there's several books that I could go on there now, and you type the name of that book and you'll see that there's 5 other people putting the book out with that same name, and just copyright, trademark, until it matters and it's a big deal. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so nobody come back and say, Thomas said it was okay to do. I'm not saying it's okay to do. I'm just saying, don't worry about it so much.
Definitely. I mean, and again, I'm have no legal expertise myself, but I've talked to people, and there's always that they say common law copyright is one thing,
Sure.
But when you get trademarks and things like that, that's not, when you're getting to a higher level, you're not just trying to get, as I understand it, you're not just trying to get trademarks to go after, to have the potential to go after other people. You're having it to protect yourself.
Yeah, and at that point, you're exactly right. At that point, you're coming up with something. Say in Inferno Studios or whatever, and you wanted to use it, and you went and tried to get a trademark on it or whatever. There's all kind of different things called, Inferno this, Inferno the other, Inferno whatever, Inferno comics and that kind of stuff. It's no big deal. We're not all fighting out. And once you actually do a real trademark and all that kind of stuff, it'll come back and say, oh no, you can't call your comic book company this, because somebody already else has paid for that trademark. And at that point you'll know, maybe I got to change my name to something else.
Exactly. And he goes on and says something that he wants to have something he can stick with, but he still wants to work for other companies, and you totally still could. I mean, like I always think about Mike Deodato, right? Who I was like, back in the 90s, I was like, who is this Mike Deodato, and how is he meeting the deadline on so many books? And then later on, we found out that Mike Deodato was a team of artists. Now they call it
a whole studio of people. Yeah,
which is Deodato Studios, they say now. So you could do both. He says, should I tell you the name of my first comic? You're welcome to, but you may want to keep it to yourself. It's up to you. But you don't want to give out a good idea either publicly sometimes. But we leave that up to you. And Hyper Potato says, I'm not a lawyer, but I have stayed in a Holiday Inn Express.
There you go. That means you're just as what you're saying is just as valid as what we're saying.
Exactly, just as much expertise.
Yeah, exactly.
And Stephen Brown says his comic book's almost done. That's awesome. I mean, what I love about comic books is, you may want to get hired by one of the big studios or do this and that, but nobody's stopping you from doing your own comic book. If you have the level of quality may vary, but you don't need a lot of big tools. You can make your own comic book, and that's what's so cool. You don't have to wait for somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the story that I've told. One of my Inferno books, Zomboy. It has nothing to do with zombies and stuff, but I've had that book out since '95. I've been working on Zomboy Kid Hero, and when I put that book out, a couple of years later, a bigger, much bigger company sent me a cease and desist saying that I can't use the word Zomboy, even though they call their book something else. I don't want to really go into don't want to give them any kind of but so I took they sent, and this was a bigger company, even though their book was about zombies, and mine was about little kid superheroes, but I just called my book Zomboy because it was just what the name of my superhero. And I went to a lawyer. It was a family lawyer, one of our friends of the family. I mean, it was a bigwig lawyer, but he was a friend of the family. And he basically told me, he was like, if we took this to court, you would win. It's going to cost some money. Do you really care, or do you just want to change your name a little bit? And I'm like, I'm going to change my name. And so I just called it Zomboy Kid Hero and told those other people to go climb a tree, and they left me alone after that point. And then they only put out one issue of the stupid book, so they gave me hell for no reason whatsoever. So, and then it turned out to be a good thing for me, because now I have a whole big line of Kid Hero books, and people are getting me to do sketches and little one-page stories and little stories with my Kid Hero style that I like to do and all that kind of stuff. So while it sucked at the time, it turned out to be good for me. So it worked out fine. So, roll with it, right?
Absolutely. And Stephen continues. He says his book's almost done. He says, when it's done, I can tell there's a satisfaction of completing it, and I'll wait till it's out. That sounds good, And when you do get it published, and I can speak from personal experience. Definitely consider or go with Kablam because they do.
Yeah, I
amazing-
know a printer that could print your book for you, and yeah.
Not to segue, but I'm just curious. So we're on the air. Might as well say, like, I'm just curious how Kablam started because it's you and Barry Gregory, right? But that's your comic book fans. But like, I'm always curious how that whole endeavor.
Okay, what back in I first moved to Orlando in 19 I would guess it was 1999, I guess it was. Right at the millennia. And still doing some comics and stuff. I started doing caricaturing and stuff out at Disney. And I ended up talking Barry and his wife Jennifer Gregory to move down. But of course, Barry and I have been friends for a long time with Roland. Actually, Barry and Roland are our leader and all this stuff. They went to high school together. So it was just all kind of weird that we all were friends for such a long time. But we were going to conventions. MegaCon actually is the convention that started where we were doing our own self-publishing, and there was a comic company, a printer, out there. I don't want to, like I said, I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but it was a bigger independent printer out there that he and I both sent our books in to get printed that we were supposed to bring to the show. Well, of course, my books came, right? I got my books in time, and Barry didn't get his books. And this company, was running behind on lots of people's stuff at the time. And Barry and I decided to just start. We were going to lease a machine so we could just print our own books, right? And at that point, we realized how expensive it was going to be, and then we were going to just do it for a limited amount of people. The people that we knew that were having a hard time getting their books printed elsewhere, and then we just kind of opened it up, and it kept growing and growing. And this was like 2005, 2004, I think, is when we started it, and Kablam, and then we just kind of went from there, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I guess we're in the process of fixing to get new machines again. It's time to get to upgrade everything. But awesome. I think somebody here on the panel just got some books from us. How did they turn out?
I did, and I'll be revealing it in the next maybe a couple of weeks or so as this project's coming along that I'm doing it. But it turned out awesome, and I gotta say, like, there's something really cool about knowing the person who's printing it is, one, a comic book fan, and two, a comic book creator.
That was the thing when Barry and I started it. We were like, because digital printing your books digitally like that was either you would take them to like Kinko's or something, a photocopy place, and you would get books that sort of kind of looked right. But our whole goal was to, because we've been, love comics from being kids, and we've been doing, making comics for that since the early 90s, that we were like, if we're going to do this, the books have to look like comic books. They have to look like they're traditionally printed comics. And luckily for me, after the last few years, the last 2 or 3 years before I moved down here to Orlando, I started working at our local newspaper because of all of the page layout, all the software, Photoshop, in Quark Studios, all that kinds of stuff. I started working for my local paper. They were a USA Today paper, and not that I helped. I basically was their production manager. I worked up really quick because I knew how to put all these things together. I knew how to build pages, newspaper pages. But so when Barry and I started, when we decided to go ahead and start Kablam, we took, all of our, my basic knowledge on what we needed to do to be able to get these books done properly, and Barry's design sense, and, and put some money together, leased a digital machine that could actually do what we needed it to do. And then we just grew it from there. So that's kind of the short version of how Kablam started. Yeah, we basically started because there was another company that didn't send our books to us, and so we were like, well, we can't do this again, and so we came out and started Kablam, and then
You want
kind of
something done right, damn it.
we did it. Yeah, it's like you said, we're comic creators, and so we know what comics are supposed to look like. And we never, I'm not saying I'm the best comic creator, but I know what a comic's supposed to look like. And so that was our goal, to what we were putting out had to look like a comic, even though it was, printed digitally and not on a big web press and all that kind of stuff with all the plates. It's all digital. Everything we do is digital, except for the some of the trimming and some of the trade paperbacks we still do, on offline and all that kind of stuff. But everything is digital. So it had to look right. It had to look like a comic. And luckily for us, with Roberta and you guys, yourself, Curtis and Malibu and stuff, I had already broke everybody into thinking that comics could look colored nicer. So it already led to digital printing that worked out, even though, y'all were printing all the stuff, you were doing all the separations, and they were doing it traditionally printing and all that kind of stuff, but it was still digitally produced up until that point.
Yeah, it was the goal to make it look cool.
Yeah, exactly. And so that really made it easy for us so we just needed to make sure that the finished book looked like a comic book, and made sure we had the right paper and stapled properly and folded and, and all that kind of stuff.
When it feels like a proper comic book too. I mean, if you go to FedEx office is what it's called now, whatever. I mean, you'll try and print. I mean, it'll be thick. It won't bend right.
Yeah, Yeah, you remember the ash cans that we used to get back in the 90s, where it's just little folded pieces of paper in half, and kind of you could go to your mom and pop shop, and there's been a ton of those businesses that start up since we've been doing this full time for the past 15, 16 years or whatever. There's been bunches of other people that have popped up. And, mom and pop shops that may have a digital machine, but it's like, we don't do anything else at Kablam. We don't print any kind of newspapers. If somebody wants us to print a bunch of gaming books, we have like one customer or one client that we print all of their D&D type gaming manuals and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, we do all that kind of stuff, but we don't do any of the other, we try to keep our paper stock limited. We don't carry a whole bunch of stocks. We get into some specialty papers every now and again. Like right now, we've been doing the foil, holographic foil papers and stuff that are selling really well. They look really good because we can print white ink with our machines. So that way you can, it's just trying to make the books look like comics, which is the goal.
Definitely, and the chat is actually talking about Kablam, so I'll read what everybody's chatting.
Hope it's good stuff. You guys better be careful. I'm not looking at the chat. Don't make me come over there. I know where you live.
It's good stuff. Hyper Potato has glowing things to say about it. Says he just got his order from Indie Planet. Great looking books as usual.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And he also continues. He goes, anyone not familiar with Barry Gregory's John Amen, books? It's one of his favorite comics of the last several years. Yeah, that's a great Barry Gregory's great job.
Yeah, Stephen did all those. I actually inked the oversized. I think it's the 4th or 5th issue of that. But you guys be looking out for more John Amen. We're working on something else with that. The Miniature Man books, I inked the first 2 of those. So Barry and I, Barry and I got another little story that we're working on that if I can get some time to finish it up, we'll get that out. But yeah.
And those books are great because not only is it harking back to an older era, but also they're solid books. They're solid stories. I remember I heard somebody recently say something to the effect of one thing that they feel about some comic books is there's so many splash pages all over the place. They read through the book like that, and they don't actually get the story, But I can definitely say those books are great because they're chunky. There's a good story, and the artwork is solid and consistent. I think consistent artwork is something that's missing sometimes from a lot of books, where every panel has the same level of quality and detail. They're great books. Great books.
Yeah, Barry puts a good book together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And he also, Hyper Potato also goes on. He says many of the Silverline books are available on Indie Planet too, so check them out, kids. I agree. Definitely check them out. Check out Indie Planet. A lot of cool stuff there.
Yep.
And Wubba chimed in. He says, Roberta,
Whoa!
yeah, what's up, Wubba? He says, colors are looking good. Well, they should. They're on your artwork, so they better. And I've been watching Roberta's, and I gotta chime in because it's like I'll be talking and I'm watching what Roberta's doing. It's like there's like, oh, this is great. I love that Roberta is so aware of temperature when she colors her stuff. I think a lot of people don't get that nuance.
Yeah.
Roberta really gets like cool colors, how they affect.
I hate that Roberta girl. I wish she would be so
Yeah,
good.
I know.
I mean, I can color, but I color because I need to put some color on the paper to get it out. But she actually knows what she's done. Yeah.
It's great. I can tell like.
Is she listening? She's not listening, is she?
I'm listening.
Hey!
I heard that. Thank you, though.
But yeah, it's so evident that Roberta's classically trained in color theory and has a strong understanding of it. And I think in the early era of the digital age of art, I remember when I was in art school, they actually had like two different groups. You had people that had artistic skills, and then you had people that had technical computer skills. And neither the tween should meet normally, And by the time I graduated, the industry changed. I remember they told me, they said, literally, just learn traditional art. The companies will teach you the computer programs. And by the time I got out, they had already switched, But Roberta's that perfect example of both. When you have the technology in the right hands, you have pages like this. So
I think that's one of the things I'm really grateful for in college is that they didn't start out teaching me computer or anything.
yeah, exactly.
That really did force me to think of everything that needed to happen before colors decided on.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole piece, and when you have like a computer that can make whatever you want it to make, I think it's very easy to kind of just start getting into it. You know what I mean? Just like just start using it as a tool and not thinking through it as an artist.
Absolutely. There's restraint, right? When the sky's the limit with what you can do, restraint is your biggest asset.
Yes.
And if you have a traditional background, you understand restraint. But if you look at like old day digital artwork, it's like, why is there 5 lens flares in this, and why is there this low res texture on this guy's arm? Like, what are you doing? So,
well, that is a noticeable difference, with this kind of technology, is that people who don't understand resolution can probably make Tommy's life miserable.
We get that a lot. Yeah, people sending us files that are the wrong size, and they're like, "Can you just print it anyway?" And I'm like, "It's gonna be bad." And they're like,
"Well, okay,
yeah, it's not gonna print very good." And they're like, "Well, why not?" And I'm like, "Because you didn't do it at the right resolution. It's gonna." And they go, well, can you fix it? And I'm like, no, you needed to fix it, not us. It's already passed. I mean, some people get and Barry says this a lot. My business partner, he says that people are confusing printing and magic kind of together. They
That's
think
a great term.
Yeah, they think that we can do, because we have all this, I mean, each of the machines is, super high-end machines. Like we can take the files that are the wrong. You can't send us a 50 dot per inch image and have it print right. It's going to be all blurry and jaggy, and it's going to look like poop. And they'll say print it anyway, and we're like, all right, we because we keep a track. We keep track of what everybody says to us, for the past, 15, 16 years. We don't erase anything. So we've got proof whenever they, we'll send them something and it's really bad, and or didn't print as well as we think it would. And then we see them on Facebook saying, well, Kumbaya, I'm printing my book poorly. And then we'll copy and paste exactly what you wrote us and what we wrote you and told you it was going to be bad. And you said print it anyway. And then,
Smart.
they usually retract what they have to say. But,
So I can say if you have high-res machines, you have high-res mistakes. So
Yeah, that's
you better,
true too.
Interesting.
yeah, you better watch what you're doing.
That's fun. Well, I love that saying. Was it? It's a failure to plan. Your failure to plan does not mean my emergency, or an emergency on my side. It's like,
It at least once, maybe twice a month, we'll get a book that that you see all the effort that it's usually a new person. Sometimes we'll get some people that have been doing books, been printing stuff with us forever, and all of a sudden they'll do a whole book and it's just wrong. The files there aren't formatted right. But you'll get somebody brand spanking new, and you'll get the files, and you could see that they put in a year worth of effort to get this book done, and we're just like, this is not going to print right. And then they're
That's
like,
cool.
I don't have, and we're like, can you send us a high res version of these files? And they go, this is the only thing that we've got. And I'm like, you colored this at 60 dots per inch? And they're like, yeah, this is what we did. And they're like, oh, it's not going to print right. So we'll go through. There's little tricks that we can do to try to make it, to smooth things out a little bit. But that takes a lot of time, to go through and fix people's. But I feel really bad sometimes. We just sit there and go, oh man, this poor guy's never going to do another comic book ever again, because
you just got to print it
half his
really
life.
small. You just got to print it the perfect resolution.
comic.
Yeah,
We have
a little
just
bitty guy. Yeah, there
We
you
have just
go.
the thing for you.
Yeah, then it'll print just fine. I was going to jump back to Roberta's coloring stuff. The way that she thinks about coloring, and it's the same with my my business partner Barry. You guys think about it as like you should. It's more of you're picking scenes of the story. It's and I studied this with when I moved down to Disney to start off with. I was back when they did a lot of the production of the stuff here. I had I was going to try to get into doing animation stuff, but doing it in all my studying and all that kind of stuff, you guys pick color themes for your scenes and stuff like that, and that's why your colors are so beautiful. Me, I've got a palette of what my guys look like. I color the same way all the way through the whole book. And I'm like, I'm done. But you guys,
you can do that and then change it.
No, I'm not going to change
if
it. I already
you
colored
wanted
it once.
to.
If I wanted to, I don't want to.
That's one difference between
Yeah,
traditional.
I mean, yeah,
It's
you
like
guys-
you kind of
Oh,
stuck
yeah.
with what you painted, but
Yeah.
Photoshop, you can change it. It just
Yeah,
does take
if
an
it's
awful
if
lot of
it's-
effort to make it
if
look
it's
right.
a dark scene, you guys pick a different palette. If it's a hot scene, cold scene, you guys are both of you. I've noticed that with your stuff, and Barry does the same thing. You guys pick some color stuff, and I was like, I never would think about using those colors, and it's just like I'm just blown away, and I can't even just so happy that when I'm doing the stuff with Barry, he's coloring it, and the stuff that you're coloring is just really, 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 really good.
Absolutely. And Champion Miss Fury is like, oh, I'm just dying to get that. I'm sure
I want to see it so badly.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I hadn't even seen it yet. Roland hadn't put the order in for it yet. I think we're still waiting for the funds to come through, and then he'll put the order in it.
Oh, I thought he
Very
just
cool.
wasn't back from his
From MegaCon.
convention. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And speaking of your inks, Tommy, Hyper Potato chimed in. He had a question for you about inks.
Oh no.
Specifically, he said, when inking Stephen Butler, do you ink on
Mm-hmm.
board, digitally, or some combination of the two?
No, it depends on what and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the Kablam thing with the printing. You need to know what the final output is going to be for. So regardless of it's with Steven or whatever, I now I like to do everything digitally. Even with Steven's stuff, I'll do it digitally. If I need to do it on paper for a reason, for like if we need to sell the artwork or if we're doing Kickstarter rewards or something like that, I'll do it on paper. But otherwise, I try to do everything digitally. And I've really put in a lot of effort to try to make it so you can't tell that I'm doing it digitally. I mean, you guys can know because you see me doing it, because when we're streaming these things, you can, see that I'm, inking it digitally and stuff. But when it's printed, I usually do that at shows. Some of my creator friends that'll come by, and they'll see, what I've got on the table, and I tell them to look at this book, and they'll go, "Oh, this is great," and I'm like, "So is this digital or traditional?" And they go, "I think it's traditional." I'm like, "No, that's all digital." And yeah, so I've really tried to make it so you can't tell it's kind of like with the printing, with the Kablam printing. We tried to, even though it's all digital printing, it's got to look like a comic book. So my inks, I tried to make them look, as if it was a, brush, quill, tech pens, on paper and stuff. So it's I use to answer his question, I use Clip Studio. I like Clip Studio for pretty much everything. It's kind of a cheap Photoshop, right? It's not. You still on the iPad, you still have to do a subscription thing, but it's way cheaper than Photoshop, and the Photoshop for the iPad sucks. So
the phone app essentially for the iPad.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you can do everything in it. I pencil in it. I do my my thumbnails for my own books and my own stuff in it. I color in it. I don't color like Roberta does. Okay, sorry, I suck. But I get by. But yeah, I ink in it. You can letter in it. I try to do it all on the iPad. There's the iPad. Woo-hoo-hoo. That's the iPad. That's the moneymaker right there.
Quick question about that, Tommy, because I remember when we first started these live streams, at the beginning of the whole pandemic situation. I think you maybe have mentioned that you had gotten some type of screen protector, something like that gave your screen a little boost. Do you still do that?
Yeah, I sure do. There's I still use just the regular pen. They actually, and I should try to buy some. They make some nibs, some tips for your Apple Pencil, and I think the ones for the Surface Pros, all the stuff, and then the Wacom tablets or Wacom, however you want to pronounce it. You get some different tips, but there's a company that people like to use. I bought them and I didn't use it. It's called Paper Like. Have you heard of those guys? They make a screen protector for the different devices. But what I've stuck with that works really good for me is I just get a matte screen protector. And the matte, it has enough tooth, and I've used 2 or 3 of them, and they all feel about the same. And I just go through them, every couple of months I'll just put a new one on because, I'm drawing on it so much, I just end up, you can start to feel little grooves in it and stuff. So I just swap it out, and then I throw the little, the little nibs come off, off your iPencils and all your other devices. That little sucker comes off. You can buy them off of Amazon for real cheap. You can get like a pack of 4 or 5 for $20 or whatever. And so the tip will get worn down and it'll get kind of blunt. And so I just kind of throw them away. And so it's just a matte screen protector. If anybody really wants to know, I can look it up. Not any particular. Yeah.
I would like that. That looks really good.
Yeah.
I can't color and listen to you at the same time, but I like that.
Now, does the tooth on it, Tommy, is that just so it's more enjoyable for you, or do you feel that it actually produces a different kind of result?
It gives me a little more of a tooth when I'm drawing on the paper. When I ink on paper, I love to draw on, when I'm penciling stuff, I'm really flaky like this way. So if I was penciling something that I was going to give to somebody else to ink, which I never do, I like to pencil on rough paper. But when I ink, I want to ink on real smooth paper. I like it when it's super glassy smooth, but not so smooth as your iPad screen, because that's like plastic on glass, and it's tap 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 tap. You're beating on the screen all day long. So no, putting this matte screen protector on here. I could look it up if anybody was really interested in this latest one, but I've gone through a couple of different ones. It's just a matte. You can get matte and you can get a glossy one. So just get the matte one, and it's just got a little bit of a tooth, enough that when I rub across it, it drags like a pencil or a brush on paper.
Yeah, sometimes that feel is really important.
Yeah, you need that a little bit, and you're not getting that. If I took this off, you would hear it. It's just tap 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 tap. So
Yeah.
when you put this on there, it stops that tappy tap noise.
Yeah, the
And
Wacom
whenever
Surface
I
does that.
and whenever I hear other people on streams and stuff, and I can hear them drawing in the background, it's just like tap tap. I just want to send them a note saying, "Stop that! Put something over that thing." You're that's the plastic tip slapping against that glass screen, and
Well,
I'm sure it's fine, but it's
I'll have
yeah.
to look it up, but you would find this funny. There's a drawing app that I found on my phone that imitates the sound of different media as well. So if you're drawing
cool.
with pencil or paint, there's like splashing sounds, or there's
Oh,
the
really?
rough sound of the pencil when you're drawing.
That's
So
kind
Roberta,
It's really fun.
you're on a Mac, right? So you're using
No, I'm saying this is an iPhone app that.
No. I'm right now when you're doing your coloring, you're
Yes.
coloring on a
Correct.
Wacom,
On a Wacom tablet.
Wacom, yeah, like a Cintiq or something like that.
I wish. No, just Wacom.
Well,
It's
isn't that that particular? Isn't that what the one's called now?
The Cintiq is thousands of dollars, you know.
That's the high-end one.
Oh.
Yeah, that is and I don't think I could get my head around, buying that when I can color quick enough, But I absolutely love it, and anyone that wants to fund me for a Cintiq purchase, thank you.
So you're coloring with a mouse and stuff right now.
No.
Let me see your pencil. Oh, there it is. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and it's got a tip.
Oh,
that
so
you wear out.
you've got a
insert.
tablet. So you're not drawing on the screen. You're drawing on a. I can't do that. That's
Well,
one
see,
that.
this is Malibu. Thank you for Malibu.
Yeah, when
doing
when
it 8 hours a day, you
Oh.
definitely don't.
I can't. Yeah, I ended up buying a Wacom tablet, a big monster one, because that's what you have to do, right? Before I ended up buying coloring on the screen or drawing on the screen, and I just couldn't do it. I could draw better with a mouse than I could draw on those little tablets.
You know what I found is the easiest thing to do to get your mind around it is to backtrack, listen to music, don't think about the coloring, and kind of think about something completely different, and you'll find you're doing it.
That intuitive side, huh?
You know what I did? I just quit doing it until I saved enough money to buy a screen to draw
That's
on.
another way. Sure.
And then once I started doing that, I ended up buying. I can't remember the name of the company since I don't use Mac stuff other than my iPad and my phone. But I forget which screen. So I ended up buying some Amazon thing. It was like $500-600 screen, and it was heavy as could be. But it's kind of a Cintiq ripoff kind of a thing. And then when I started doing drawing on the screen, it's like I'm not going back. I'm just gonna whatever I've got to do to keep drawing on the screen, because I just wanted to do digital, and I could not draw on a tablet I can't draw over here and look at the screen over there. I just can't do it. I cannot do it. I don't know why. It just doesn't work for me.
The chat, it's a couple more things from our chat. Hyper Potato, he was talking about, you were mentioning earlier, sometimes for rewards you do inks. Tommy, he was saying he'd love to see more originals as rewards. Well, duly noted.
Yeah, on that last, I don't know if Mr. Potato, on that last Kickstarter, we had so many rewards on there. So whenever the next one comes up, you'll have to check that out. Yeah, we had a bunch of stuff. We even have a bunch of commission things that you can get us to draw stuff. I've got, actually, I think the same person that did Mr. Pete, myself, and Haley's thing bought the 3 out of each of us. So they're getting all 3 of us to draw 2 different of the same thing, I believe is what's going on. Just so he could see what all. Yeah, so we're all drawing the same character. Yeah, to see. Cool. So yeah, so I've already seen Pete's. He's already done one of his, and I need to get on to mine. But I can't wait to see, because I'm going to beat gonna beat Pete. Mine's gonna be better.
Definitely. And
Yeah,
Stephen
mine's
Brown,
not gonna be nearly as good as Pete's, but that'll be cool.
well, Stephen Brown also says, talking about drawing, he says, when I draw the panels, I try to think if it's action, what's more dynamic, if it's talking, what's more suspenseful. Yeah, definitely. There's so many subtle things. That's a fascinating thing about comic book art. Is just there's a lot of things that it comes across as an art style that's very in your face, but there's a lot of subtle things when you look at people who are masters of the craft, what they do. Definitely. So that's very cool. I was going to mention we were talking about Kablam, and I heard that horror story, not from Kablam, but another company, and I thought Tommy might appreciate this.
Oh no.
These guys had
Don't get me in trouble.
Oh yeah, no, you guys. It's not you guys.
Curtis is trying to get me in trouble.
But I guess somebody had. The cool thing about Kablam is they fulfill orders. As well as print them. I had heard online about some comic book creators who had gone with, I guess, some place that's probably a bit more budgetarily worked for them. Let's put it that way. That was cheap, right? And so they were like, yeah, we can print it and fulfill it. Great. They got the orders. Everything was going. And then people started complaining when they received it. Now, when I get my stuff from Kablam, it's always, in a nicely packaged, packaging shipped. Everything's pristine. It comes, nicely wrapped, in cardboard and everything. So apparently what these people these other guys had used, they weren't familiar with comic books. They printed it and they slapped a return. They slapped the actual shipping information on the actual book.
Oh, I've heard about that.
And sent it through the mail. And it's like, you heard about that? I can't even believe
it. They did several hundred books like that. I think is this if we're talking about the same one? Yeah.
There's a show called, and I can't say the name. They're called World Class, and then BSers is the nice name for it, but it's like an entertainment cast. And they did their own comic book, and they were just losing it over whoever. I don't know who they used, but obviously not the right people.
Yeah, it wasn't us. Yeah, we try to keep our this is not a Kablam ad or anything here.
Yeah.
We try to keep our prices as we haven't raised prices in years. And so, we if we mess up, which, it happens, things happen. And then, of course, the Postal Service, they crush books and all that kind of stuff. And that's what insurance is for. And, and we reprint stuff that needs to be reprinted. And if we mess up, of course, we reprint it and we fix everything. But we try not to, why, like you're saying, that they put the shipping address on the front of the comics and stapled them closed, if I remember right, if we're talking about the same people. For like it was a Kickstarter thing and they did that. And, because they treated it like a mail flyer, I believe. Yeah. And, it's like, so, I mean, you got to go where you can afford to go to and stuff, but you got to make sure if it's somebody that doesn't deal with comics and the collectability aspect of comics and all that kind of stuff, make sure that you're and it's somebody that's brand new that's never done it before and stuff. Make sure you talk them through everything of what you're expecting from them. So, you gotta just make sure. I mean, you can find cheap ways to do all kinds of stuff, but you gotta, there's going to be that hassle of, what if it goes wrong, and they're going to say, well, you didn't say I couldn't do it that way, so we did it. And they're going to say tough. And then you're going to be, you're going to have to go get it printed somewhere else again and pay for it out of your own pocket, or they're not going to redo it because they, if you go back and look at the contract that you made with them, they probably had a thing in there saying, oh, we're going to put a label on it and ship it. And you go, yeah, that's what I want. And that's what they did. Yeah. And so they're going to go, well, I almost said something bad. They're going to say tough stuff. Yeah, there you go. And we're not reprinting it. You can pay to reprint it again, and it's going to cost you more. But yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, yep.
And then your own customers.
Buyer beware, right? Buyer beware.
And then the customers that bought the books from you now have this sour experience. That's really
and they'll never buy anything from you again unless you make it right. So
and Stephen Brown just wrote, "That's messed up." Yes, I agree.
Yes, it is. Yep.
And Oven Armando Reyes just said hello, Silverline. Hey,
Hello.
Oven. Good to see you. You know, I'd be curious if anybody in the chat wants to chime in. But tonight, we started with our regular kind of subjects and stuff like that. And we kind of went in different route. And we kind of talked a little bit more technically about creating comics, and we do that often. But I rather enjoyed it. I kind of enjoyed it, and I would be curious. For those of you watching, what your thoughts are on that, because I think that would be good sometimes. Sometimes we're just talking about the craft as we're making it. I think there's a lot of shows out there that talk about pop culture and comic books. The thing that I enjoy about our show is, and I think we should probably say it more, is we are creating comic books while we're doing this. That's a very big difference, And as a comic book fan myself, if had I not had the experience that I would probably enjoy a show more where I was learning about the technical craft, as well as people's opinions and topics. So feel free, we're winding down here, but if anybody that's watching has any thoughts on that, I'd be just curious to hear if that's something that you find interesting, because I do. So we're winding down. We're in the last couple minutes. We'll just go through the chat. Stephen Brown's saying, yeah, you lose customers that way, and then they talk and you end up building a bad rep, which would be bad for business. Which is true, and that's one thing.
In the case that we're talking, it wasn't their fault. It's just that they had bad information, and it's just a bad situation, and
definitely.
Yeah.
And Stephen, this just I'll throw this in there. This harkens back to your brand name or your company name. One thing that when I started my martial arts school, I read a book, and one thing that's interesting is it is, Tommy's mentioned it earlier, I think it's a good idea, but it's something to be careful of too. Is it's good sometimes to use your name on a business, but if the business fails or the business has a bad rep, now your name is tied to that business. Now they know that John Doe's printing or John Doe's comic books immediately gives us. So sometimes that's the reason why you want to have a name that's separate from you. Now, if the business is great, then wherever you go, everybody knows that.
Well, at some point you're kind of stepping into actually. There's a whole big difference between just putting a comic together and self-publishing it and just getting it out there and all that kind of stuff, than starting a complete business that has, tax implications and all this kind of stuff. And and like you were saying, your martial arts business that you did and all that you have and all that kind of stuff. It's at some point you need to be able to, if things go bad and you gotta, close it down or file bankruptcy or whatever that kind of thing is. So there's, it depends on how far you need or how deep you need to get into it.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's a learning process. Like as a business owner, Tommy, right? It's like, that's a whole nother learning process, right?
Yeah. You need to be able to separate yourself at some point. It's a business. I mean, it may be your love, but it's still at some point, it's a business. You got to be able to get out if you can without, causing the bank to come take your house and, every bit of property that you own and all that kind of stuff. So that's at some point, you got to make it a business and all that kind of stuff. Then of course you're paying all your business taxes and all that good stuff, and you're paying a lot of money. But you've got that separation in there that you really need to have, because business is like for the past year and a half, how many businesses closed down, because of COVID and all that kind of stuff. So you need to be able to get out without it taking your family down in the process. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
we're just about at the tail end. I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to add. We went over so many different things. Anything else you want to add, mention before we kind of start to close things out? Any thoughts? I think we kind of got everybody. Okay, I'll keep an eye on the chat if anybody has any other last questions. We're about to finish up in the next couple of minutes, but we'll start kind of closing things up. So first of all, thanks for everybody for coming, and thanks for everybody that supported us at MegaCon. Roland was there, Dante, quite a few creators that are associated with us. We really appreciate that, and we really appreciate us getting, I think it was our 12th Kickstarter, right, guys?
Yeah.
I think it was 12th. Yeah, successful 12th Kickstarter. That's that's awesome. We really appreciate that, and we have a lot of cool stuff planned ahead. So don't forget. Again, the Silverline Zazzle store. We have, cool merchandise. Every bit helps. We appreciate that. And also Daytona Beach Comic Con is our sponsor. So get ready for that. We have a lot of creators of our team coming there. And I think maybe even some people might be meeting up for the first time in person with each other, which is
that'll be October or September the second week. I guess I could look it up. We probably should know what it is. It's right around the corner, less than a month from now.
Okay.
And we should have some of the books from this last Kickstarter for sale there. Of course, we won't have the Kickstarter exclusive books there, but we'll still have some books there. So people that didn't get the books during the Kickstarter should be able to grab some books. And of course, Roland and myself will be there, so we'll be able to sign them. And maybe Miss Roberta can fly over real quick and sign some books, and then we'll get Pete to fly all the way from the UK to come sign some. No, I doubt it. He's not coming.
I think when Pete comes stateside, that's when we're going to be like the whole band got together, right? That's going to be a crowning achievement,
Oh, hopefully things will flip around here pretty soon, and we'll be able to get a lot more shows going and get these numbers back down again to a reasonable. And I mean numbers. I mean the COVID numbers. We'll get that back down.
Definitely.
And,
And I would say, that being said, over this whole situation that everybody's been going through, we've been going through, I think it's super exciting what we as Silverline as a team has been able to do and connect, and with the fans and everything. I think that's pretty cool. It's not ideal, but it's pretty awesome. So yeah, let's we'll close it up. I don't see anything else in the chat. So, but thanks for everybody who chimed in. Stephen Brown, thank you again so much for
a bunch of good questions that we were getting from those guys.
Yeah, excellent questions. Don't be afraid to chime in, folks. And Hyper Potato, same for you. And but we're going to get you back on the show at some point, sooner than later, I hope. So let's go around, and last thing before we go around, just again to remind everybody, the show's been produced by Carlos at New Armor Media. That's why we have all this kind of cool graphics and the camera switching between people and things like that. So thank you so much, Carlos. And look up New Armor Media if you need some help with the production of your live stream or things like that. They specialize in it, and I can say from personal experience, we've really had a big uptick in terms of like what we've been able to present since they joined our team. So thanks to them. But let's go around. I'll start with Tommy. So Tommy, where can folks find you online?
Just go to infernostudios.com. There's a bunch of links there. You can go on Facebook and just look up Thomas Florimonte Jr. I always spell it because everybody gets it wrong. Florimonte. Just do a Google search for Thomas Florimonte, and you can find links. And then if you need anything printing, go to Kablam Digital Printing. We can help you out there. We're always in the message center there answering questions. And I guess that's it. InfernoStudios.com. Like the fire. Inferno. Fire.
Flames.
Yeah.
And Roberta, if you'd be so kind to let people know where they can find you online.
Give out your phone number so they can call you.
So yeah, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Roby Conroy, and that is ROBI Conroy. And that's it for now.
Excellent. And and for me, you can find me in multiple places online, and it also depends on if you're looking for me in my martial arts aspect or the comic book. There's a lot of crossover there. So you can find me for my martial arts school. You can find it at tigercrane.net, tigercrane805 on Instagram and on YouTube. And also for my comic book, it's Shadow Ghost Comic, one word, on Instagram and Facebook. I am putting out more and more content about the development process and things like that, character designs I'm doing every month, things like that. The goal is to build up a following about Shadow Ghost before the Kickstarter starts. So feel free to check it out, share it. The more people that know about it, the more people that will be aware when the Kickstarter begins. So please check that out, and also check out Silverline Comics. We're on TikTok now. We're also on Facebook and obviously YouTube and Twitch. So that's pretty much it. We'll be back next week. Roland should be back handling the hosting duties. And in the meantime, if everybody's ready, on the count of three. One, two, three.
Make mine Silverline.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Be safe. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Okay. Oh, and don't forget
Thanks
our
for
Tuesday.
watching.